Hello everyone, True Zero Emissions here. So today I'm going to make a video about Bill Kendrick's gasoline vaporization system. It's a flashing vapor system. It's so interesting. I'm probably going to make a video about this every single day. Now this video is a request also, not just for automakers to implement this zero emissions fuel system, which increases horsepower, increases the thermal efficiency of the internal combustion engine, and reduces exhaust emissions to non-existence. I mean, it's so exciting. How could I not talk about this? Everyone says we need solutions now. I'm going to talk about solutions over and over and over. I'm going to keep repeating these solutions. And what automakers say is they need the public to ask for these technologies, because if they don't think you want something, they're not going to give it to you. So by asking for these things, it helps, right? And this is also a request directly to automakers. Now, everyone's going to have their own version of this, but essentially what needs to take place is, imagine a fuel injector. Now, my drawing is going to be very terrible stick figures, but just imagine this is a fuel injector, right? And it's spraying fuel. Okay, that's what fuel injectors do. They spray little droplets of fuel, right? Now, that fuel is going to hit... Now, imagine we have like I'll call it a flash vaporization chamber, right? Imagine that fuel injector's mounted right here inside this chamber, this metal chamber. And imagine the metal chamber has a hot plate on it, like for cooking. Now, obviously that can be refined and it doesn't have to be a hot plate, but this is just like if a person wanted to test this, they could. I tested it with a hot plate, and I used a like an ammo box, you know, like an ammo box, like that's metal. Now those have paint on it, so the paint will definitely come off. But now imagine we're spraying the fuel under high pressure, right? Because fuel injection is at, I think, at least 40 psi, right? Which is good. But the higher the pressure, the better. And people that have experimented, that have replicated this and experimented with this, have told me that high pressure is ideal. Now, when you spray at this, this is usually around 800 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? Around 800 degrees Fahrenheit, approximately. Now, what we don't want to happen is we don't want the fuel to ignite. So if fuel ignites, let's say at 1,000 degrees, right? 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. If that's the auto ignition temperature of fuel. Now, if you look on Google, it says it's like, last time I checked, it was like 400 or 500. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about something else. We're flashing the fuel. We're flash vaporizing the fuel, okay? So I don't know what conditions the internet's talking about when it says auto ignition temperature of gasoline is a low number. I don't know what they're referring to. What I'm talking about is something that's a really hot surface and taking an ambient temperature, whatever temperature that may be, just whatever the air temperature is, fuel, and spraying it onto here. Now, experiments could be done where the fuel is made cold or warm before it sprays onto this, right? That could be done too. But all my testing was with ambient temperature fuel, okay? So usually in the 70s or 80s or 90s or even 100, or over 100 degrees, right? So just ambient temperature, I mean. So when we spray the fuel, the gasoline, right, which we use Shell, we think we tested Shell fuel, Chevron fuel. Now, notice cars run on any fuel you want to run in your vehicle, right? So this should work theoretically with any fuel. But I just tested with Shell, Chevron, 76, Mobil. Okay, so, but it should work with any fuel. Now, we want the highest temperature we could have, but a little bit below the auto ignition temperature. We don't want it to ignite, right? Now, if it did ignite, it would just be igniting that little bit. Like I did have auto ignition, and it didn't blow up or explode. It just burned a little bit of fuel and it went away. That's it. It's not leaking out of the fuel line, right? We don't have a fuel leak here. We're just spraying little amounts of fuel onto this area, and it instantly turns into a vapor. Now, when we vaporize fuel at this flash vaporization, by the way, let me just establish that Bill Kendricks was a NASA research projects manager, retired. And I don't know if Bill's still with us. He was older, you know, like he was an older gentleman in his older ages many, many years ago. So I don't know if he's still with us now. But Bill did share this with the world. He said it's sometimes called a black box, and people give it all kinds of exotic names and everything, but it's very, very simple. Like fundamentally, it's extremely simplistic, and any automaker can implement this into their system. And you can call it a pre-combustion vapor chamber, right? Some people call it that. Now, Bill Kendricks called it flashing fuel, flash vaporizing fuel. What happens is the fuel literally combines on a molecular level with the oxygen in the air. So that white vapor burns at a perfect burn. I'm going to use my own terminology by saying my own words. I'm sure there's better ways to describe this. But when fuel burns, you usually have to have an air to fuel ratio. You have to set that perfectly, right? You want a certain amount of air and a certain amount of fuel mixing together. But our engines are not burning all the fuel. We know that all the fuel is not getting oxidized in the combustion chambers. We know that because the catalytic converter, which burns up it reacts with the unburned fuel that goes out the engine into the exhaust system. The catalytic converter is getting hot because it's reacting with that unburned fuel, right? So with this kind of system, the catalytic converter should stay warm to the touch or not even warm at all. It might just be cool. Same with the engine. The engine will be warm to the touch. Imagine running the engine, having twice the power and being able to touch the exhaust system. Now we know that engines waste 60% of the energy in the fuel. This is all internal combustion engines, even brand new ones in brand new cars right now today, are wasting 60% of the energy to make heat. So the energy in fuel, think of it like an energy, like we can call it a British thermal unit, BTU. Imagine a fuel has a certain amount of energy in it to make heat, right? And the fuel, we're using that fuel, we want to use that fuel to make motion, to make combustion, to move the vehicle. But by having a hot surface here, right, a really hot surface, a little bit below its auto ignition temperature, I would say maybe 100 degrees or 200 degrees below, that's a good amount, a safety margin, right? So I'm thinking around 800, but above 600, I think it needs to be above 600. You want this needs to be able to vaporize instantly. If it's not vaporizing right away, we don't have a high enough temperature. So whatever is sprayed onto there needs to instantly vaporize. Now, what happens is, once we see that vapor, we can let that vapor go out into the engine. We'll say this is the engine here, okay? It's not a very good engine. It's just my box. That's my engine right there, okay? That's my engine. It has the pistons in there, right? That's 3 pistons. Usually, well, I had a Honda Insight that had 3 cylinders, so that's my Honda Insight engine. But it could be any engine. It could be a V10, a V8, a V16. It could be anything. This is our tube here, a tube in air intake manifold, right? Now and then we have air inlet, so we have air going in. We have air going in here. So air inlet, right? Air inlet, and then here's the fuel this is the fuel line. Okay? And that goes to the gas tank, right? That's the liquid gas. And when the fuel goes in here under pressure and it's sprayed, right? It's going to be sprayed in here. It vaporizes. Air's present. And then we have a stoichiometric, equal balanced, complete burn in the combustion chambers. And after running that engine, even at full speed, we should be able to touch the exhaust. I'm not telling you to do that. Read it with a temperature gauge. But it should be warm or cool to the touch. Now, if we usually waste 60% of our energy, if we usually waste 60% of the energy in fuel, you can find this anywhere online. Thermal inefficiency of the internal combustion engine. Just look that up. Thermal inefficiency of the internal combustion engine. That's what we run in our vehicles that run on gas, or gasoline, right? Natural gas engines are also internal combustion engines, and propane engines are also internal combustion engines. But those are running at closer to stoichiometric, equal balance, complete burn. Imagine being able to run a fuel like gasoline, which is terribly inefficient in our internal combustion engines, and being able to run that at a greater thermal efficiency. I think that's the way of saying it. Yes, greater thermal efficiency, which is using some of that 60% waste energy, right? Maybe is that where the double horsepower comes from? Because Bill Kendricks tested this on a dynamometer and repeatedly tested, and he ran this over the course of 25 years. The engine looked brand new inside, right? The engine looked brand new inside. The spark plugs looked brand new. The oil looked clean. When he tested it on a smog test machine, the zero hydrocarbons, zero everything. Everything was 0, 0, 0, 0, all the way down, and that was on an old truck before they had catalytic converters to burn up the unburnt fuel, right? So anyway, I'm going to keep sharing this with you, and I'm going to keep requesting automakers to please implement this technology so we could have zero emissions. And let's see, and I'm going to ask people to study this, what I'm sharing with you, and you can look up the video. I'll put it in the link. I'll put it in the description. I'll put a link to the original video, to Bill Kendrick's original video. And I communicate with Bill Kendrick for many years, and he is a highly intelligent man, and he shared this as a gift to the world. And a lot of people know about this and know about it in ways other than through Bill Kendricks. Bill Kendricks is just one of many people throughout the world that are aware of many technologies similar to this. But this is the simplest one I know of. Imagine that. You just spray the fuel onto something hot metal, right? And then it burns at a perfect, equal balance, complete burn. The molecule combines with seems to combine with oxygen. It no longer smells like gas right here. It doesn't even smell like fuel. And when you burn it, you have double the power. You have no heat on the engine. You can touch it, and it's warm to the touch or cool to the touch, including the exhaust system. The catalytic converter doesn't need to be used anymore, but if it is used, it stays cool. So that could be used as a system of redundancy. And okay, everyone, see you later. For now, I just want to say I'm going to keep trying to find new words to describe this simple idea of how to achieve zero emissions on an internal combustion engine. Now, how the fuel gets to this chamber, what your chamber looks like, and I'm talking about automakers and people requesting this from automakers as well, that can infinitely vary. It can vary infinitely, right? So that's many different patent possibilities, but we need this technology right away because it gives us zero emissions. It increases the thermal efficiency of the internal combustion engine. And again, study thermal inefficiency of the internal combustion engine. And remember, imagine not even having, I don't even know if you need a cooling system, right? All of our engines have cooling systems in them. And if I recall correctly, Bill Kendricks, if I recall correctly, he was able to not even run a cooling system in the engine, because we have to run radiators with water and liquid and all that stuff to keep the engine cool. It still runs so cool that that's possibly not even needed. That's an experimental possibility right there. So everyone, will see you in the next video, and until next time, flash vaporizing fuel, zero emissions, increased power, increased thermal efficiency. And that's what we're looking at, right? We're looking at how can we transition to greater and greater degrees of efficiency to maximize efficiency in every way possible. Okay, everyone, see you in the next video. Bye-bye.